So for all of you who have been part of the entrepreneurship process, you know that experimentation is an important part. And this panel is a bit of an experiment because we will be taking your comments and questions live. And if you haven't had a chance to use Google Documents, on stage in an experiment is a difficult time to be using them. So another one of our famous experiments. So bear that in mind. We will try to get a conversation going. You can send messages up in English or Thai, and we'll figure out what the message means and try to respond. You can also feel free to ask questions about any of the previous speakers who are running around here somewhere, and we'll try to get the questions to them as well. So this will be our last session of the day, and we wanted any questions that come to mind, feel free to ask in either language. Okay? Everything okay down there? I'm getting people looking at me like there's something not working. Okay. So if you've been around the last couple of days, you've seen a lot of great entrepreneurs. You saw some great entrepreneurial teams in our competition, and of course all of our speakers so far have been entrepreneurs even further down that path, who are on the edge or already doing great things. But there's some other types of people in the room who are kind of looking things from the other direction, and that's the purpose of this panel. So first of all, let me acknowledge some of the other people in the room. So not the entrepreneurs, but the people who are building entrepreneurial ecosystems. For example, I think somewhere in the room there's some people from KMUTT. Dr. Piangpan, Ajahn Sakarin, you guys are out there somewhere, right? I can't see anything, so I don't know, but there we go, okay. And we have some, thank you. And sitting next to you, FI, we've got a great group of people from Foodinopolis who are trying to build the ecosystem in food. And I've seen people here from NSTDA and STI and a lot of the universities that we all work together in this challenge. So the topic with us, with Katja and Andrew, is how do we build an environment to make it even easier to succeed as an entrepreneur, right? Because it's already so easy, as we've heard from our stories. Okay, so with that in mind, did we decide who's going first?
Nope.
We've asked that question 3 times this week. Katja, I think you always say yes, right?
I will go first.
Excellent. Katja will go first. Am I the one doing the machine?
I'll do it.
All right, let's see if we can make this work. This is the experiment.
Can I use the clicker?
You can try.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. My name is Katja Wald. I'm the Executive Director of the MIT Enterprise Forum of Cambridge. One of the things, so Dan said find out what you like to do and then do it. One of the things I love about my job is actually the fact that I get to meet all of these wonderful, interesting people. I am not an entrepreneur myself. I do not have an engineering degree, but I do love bringing people together and talking to a lot of smart people, and that's basically what creating a community like this is all about. So what I want to talk about really quickly is sort of the statistics about Boston, where I come from. So Boston has been very recently named the #1 startup community in the country. Finally beating out Silicon Valley. Massachusetts is the #1 in innovation economy talent. Boston is the #1 city for growth and job opportunities. It's also the #1 city for National Institute of Health funding for 23 years and counting. We are the #1 in STEM degrees per capita and the #1 state for science and tech in 16 years and counting. It's a lot of #1s. However, it took a really long time to get there. So I do like this theme of think big, act small, because it started very small. Our organization started 40 years ago. It started with a couple of alumni from MIT, engineers sitting around pitching their business plans to one another, just in a room, because they didn't know what else to do, basically. It was them, they were working on big problems, and they were trying to solve them. What they realized was that they couldn't solve them by themselves. So they needed to bring in more people. And slowly that grew. A couple years after the organization was formed, there was a book that was published in 1985. It's called Business Plans That Win Money. Last time I looked, it's actually still available on Amazon.com if you're interested. I don't make any money off of it, so please go ahead and buy. But just to give you a little context around what was happening at that time, it was C++ programming was established in 1985. Commodore Computer was launching the Amiga PC. The MIT Media Lab was founded, and Qualcomm, big company, was founded. A lot has changed over the years. So we are the oldest entrepreneurship organization, but we've had to change a lot. We started really small with a bunch of people. We got really big because we were the only game in town. And then a lot of other people came onto the market. So we had accelerators, incubators, angel groups that we were all competing with. So we've had some challenges. We've had to decide where we fit in the ecosystem. So over 40 years, we've actually changed where we fit. So right now, we really focus on coaching and mentoring concept and pre-startup stage founders. By that, I mean the people who have an idea, don't know what to do with it, and need some education on how to go to market. Because what we've decided is outside of the student or immersive and competitive accelerator or incubator experience, there's really no other place in Boston to go for that. One of the other unique things about us, although we have MIT in the name, we actually are open to anyone. So if you do not have an MIT degree, if you're not from MIT, doesn't matter. You can come on in. So what is it that we do specifically? So we do about 40 programs a year between September and June. That is essentially one, sometimes two a week. So we do what we call practical content. We run a class called Start Smart. We run it 3 times a year. It is the nuts and bolts of starting your company. So I like to call it a mini MBA. So if you're an engineer, you've never thought about business, who your market is, who your customer is going to be, you can go to this class and you can learn a little bit. What's very interesting about this class is that we have entrepreneurs. Michael actually teaches one of our classes from the community, come in and teach the class. Then if you are in our program, let me back up a little bit. You don't have to go through this. You don't have to start at Start Smart and end at Startup Spotlight. You can come and go in any of our programs at any time. So the next program that we do is our mentor program. We actually match our entrepreneurs with up to 3 mentors from the community. Again, these are business people that have done it before, lawyers, accountants, anybody at any stage that can help the entrepreneur. We also run a clinic called the Launch Smart Clinic, which is a clinic where we allow the businesses to do a 20-minute pitch. It's not that 5-minute Shark Tank style pitch. They do their full 20-minute pitch, and then they get feedback from the audience. Again, it's open to anybody. Anybody from the community can come. We also run tactical workshops. This is what I like to call the Eat Your Vegetables sessions. Things like bookkeeping and taxes for startups. Because what happens is entrepreneurs have to wear a lot of hats. They might be developing a product, but they also have to file taxes. They need to understand what happens when they become a company, things like that. So those are the workshops we do there. And then we do something called the Startup Spotlight, which is actually, we have a bunch of the Thai companies. We're excited to welcome them in June, where we showcase about 30 startups. And we used to call it a technology petting zoo, where you could just come and see what people were working on. And again, it's a large community event. We have about 300 people who attend that.
Let me just mention, our 3 teams that are in the MIT EF competition will be there in June.
I'm not turning.
Are we still working? Cool.
Pointed at something else.
Yeah. I don't know where the sensor is. Now.
All right, well, I'll talk without a slide. It's perfect. Anyway, we also do programs that I like to call our funnel events. These are large events like this. We get about 200 people in the room talking about areas of technology that we think are important. And by we, I mean our community. So I don't decide what we talk about. We have volunteers who actually produce these programs and come up with the ideas. So they are crowdsourced programs. So our innovation series is about once a month. The last one we did was on data ethics. We also have a group working on Internet of Things technologies, and we have a program coming up all day. We usually get about 300, 400 people in the room. We also have a clean tech group that is talking about things like smart cities, energy storage, things like that. But again, these programs are really essentially programs that are the funnel into trying to inspire people to come up with ideas and then take our classes and run through our programs. And I had one more slide. I don't know where it went, so I'm just going to talk to that too. I had a slide. It was about 100 names or something like that. A lot of people help us do what we do, and I think that's actually the key important part of what we do. I rely on volunteers, sponsors, people in the community to help us move these programs forward. I can't do it alone. And so I think if I can give you one takeaway, it's really an entire group of people that have to kind of come together and make these communities work.
Excellent. Thank you, Katja. Just before we move on to Andrew, if you're trying to get your questions up, you may need to refresh your device. If you do refresh your device, you might be able to send us a question such as the following. What would you suggest for new entrepreneurs trying to build a startup in a small economy where there's a huge monopoly by a handful of group of businesses? I don't know what country we're talking about. Okay, that can easily swallow your idea or copy it and put it out of the game. I suggest you go meet Kun Chit from Chit Beer, who did exactly this. If nothing else, the beer will help you feel better and think more clearly, and he will tell you the story because he has had to face this exactly. That's why we had him here today. Okay.
I would also say you could go and partner with them. You never know if they're trying to innovate in some way that you're doing.
Okay.
So, you know, they might want to listen to your ideas. You have no idea.
Typical Boston thinking, right? Andrew.
All right. Hi, my name's Andrew, and I'm going to talk about Artisans Asylum. There's your slide.
Oh.
There it is.
Okay.
Those are all the people that help us.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name's Andrew. I am a member of Artisans Asylum, wear a lot of hats there. We like to say Artisans Asylum is a place where dreams come to life, and that's not just for businesses, for a whole bunch of people. This is the bit about me, which Ed said I should put up here. I'm an engineer by training, went to school in New York and got a couple of degrees. I've run a consulting company, run a business making technologies for the solar industry. These folks here have all shown pictures of them as small children playing. I am showing in a picture of me as an adult playing. I'm a street performer with origami, and I also do some original origami design. And so I have a wide variety of background and been on Wall Street. It's been an interesting ride. All right, about Artisans Asylum. It's a maker space. We like to call it a fabrication wonderland. It's about 3,700 meters square. We'd like to go metric here. Over 300 members. A lot of small studios that are personal. We also have 12 big shops that allow you to do everything from electronics to digital fabrication, which is our classic 3D printing, jewelry, woodworking, metalwork. We really have a huge range of stuff. It was established to really do crazy things. We like to say audacious, it's a little more polite. Based in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is about one town over from Cambridge, and about 2010, and so it's 2019. We've been in business for 9 years. We are incorporated early on to take care of, to become a nonprofit, and we originally, our budget was maybe $500,000 a few years ago, and now we're up to in the $1-point-something million range, mostly funded by our members and by doing things like classes where we love to teach people, and that's how the place runs. This audacious piece of engineering here was Stompy. This was a 6-legged robot that was supposed to walk over cars. It was really kind of crazy. It was done on a successful Kickstarter, still in the process of being built. These things happen, but it, kind of crazy, but that's the stuff we do. Our mission's pretty simple. We want to encourage people to make things. If you had 3 words to choose them, it would be learn, make, and teach. We want to not just learn how to make things, we want people to go forward and teach things, teach how to make things. Here is a group of people from Artisans making something for Burning Man, a giant manta ray. In fact, one of our board members in the pink there, Rachel, is being part of that team. Here's the final result. It's a huge, crazy piece of art with a lot of engineering behind it, flying around in the Nevada desert in a festival called Burning Man. By the way, how many people have heard of Burning Man? Okay, a few people. A lot of fun, I hear. But it's not just Burning Man. We do a lot of local art projects.
Can I interrupt one second? Because there's a question on the line.
Yeah.
How do we encourage people to think outside the box? So I thought this might be a good time.
Yeah, you get a bunch of crazy people in the room, and that's why it's great for engineers to be surrounded by artists who have these great visions and great ideas, but they just don't know how to do it. And as an engineer, you're like, I think I can solve that problem. It's a great mix of people at Artisans. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Here's a classic serendipity kind of story that happens at Artisans Asylum. This is from Warhammer 40,000. It's a tabletop board game that some people like to play, not just children, even adults. People paint these little figurines and they play these games. Again, not my kind of thing, but people do this. The company came out with a new, whoops, I gotta go forward, here we go. That's the laser. The company came out with a new figurine, and they said to one of our members, we'd like you to make a full-scale model of this thing. So this is Kaiser. She's making the full-scale model. All sorts of stuff was going on, using a vacuum former, doing electronics, switches, using a lot of tools at Artisans. But the cool part about this project was not that she did it, but that so many people at Artisans got involved because we were just walking by one day and said, what are you working on? She described the problem. In the little picture down here, you'll see pictures of a bit of electronics lying around. And when I saw that myself, with 20 years of experience in the industry, I kind of said, hold on. This is never going to work. I mean, it'll work, but it'll fall apart as soon as you try to move it. And I got myself signed up for this, and I just started helping her out. I'm like, this is really cool and fun. I was not the only person that got sucked into this. Here's the final result, by the way. This is these 2 things that she created. By the way, she got a job offer from this. The price of her building all this was a first-class ticket to London from Boston, and returning, of course. The cool part about this is things like the stands that were here, the box itself that she shipped this with, they weren't made by her. They were made by members who said, we can't let you leave this building with just this. We want to make it so awesome that they're going to be blown away. They were originally expecting a static model, not to have sounds and light and all sorts of crazy party modes. I mean, we really went to town on this. And I think part of the reason she was hired was if you can inspire people to help you for free, we want you on our team. I really love this project. The second tale of serendipity was this one that I like to bring up. 3Doodler was a 3-dimensional drawing pen that a gentleman named Pete Dilworth came up with at Artisans. He asked for $30,000 on Kickstarter. At one point, it was north of $2.2 million. Pretty wild. By the way, Michael Berthoff started at Artisans. There's a lot of cool projects that happen at Artisans. This is one of them. The interesting point here is this little piece of widgetry here is a power resistor. For the folks who are not electrical engineers in the room, this is the electronic equivalent of a boat anchor. It's a really big, dumb object. It really doesn't do a lot. but it can be used in certain places. Pete came up to me searching boxes, and this is on our electronics area. I like to keep it neat. He was opening drawers like, where do you keep your power resistors? And I said, hold on, what do you need a power resistor for? He explained his problem, and I went to the whiteboard, and I just said, Mike, why are you doing it this way? We could do it this way. It'd be a lot simpler. And he looked at me, he nodded, and he said, oh, you're right, and boom, out the door. And that was part of the technical problem that was solved just by having somebody in the area who had a lot of experience in doing this. This happens time and time again. I walk down the aisle and I go, hey, who knows about such and such? And there will be somebody there who will help out. This is a project that I'm working on myself. It's a houseboat that sails project. It's designed to be built by computer numerically controlled construction, CNC. The model is here, sitting over my space. Every day we give tours at Artisans. Somebody walks in the door saying, oh, wow, this is a cool place, and start chatting. Next thing you know, I find out they're a marine architect. They are rare as hen's teeth. They're very hard to find. When I describe the problem, he's like, oh, I want to get involved in that. And he gave us so much valuable feedback that the design has changed, things are improved. That's the kind of thing that happens on a daily basis. Last piece of serendipity I'd like to show is, this is Adam Savage from Mythbusters, the guys who blow up all sorts of things in the middle of the desert. This is Gretchen Green. She's a lawyer, mathematician, an artist, a sculptor, done a lot of things in her life. She uses a plasma torch, which is usually used in the steel industry to cut up metal for artwork. And the Hypertherm company said to people, well, show us what you do with these things. She sent in her stuff, and the next thing you know, it's a huge advertisement in a welding magazine. These weird things happen all the time. The one thing I love about everybody who's come up here to talk so far is the same thing, community. Community is key, whether it's in the doing business startups or any of these other projects that people have worked on. This is a smorgasbord of people who are at the asylum. It's mostly volunteer run. There's only a few paid people that are in there. We are everywhere from 18 all the way up to retired, a mix of men and women, all walks of life, people who've made a ton of money in some particular industry and are having fun, and there are people who with small businesses. Some of the important things for artisans, at least for artisans, are that we have low walls. If you see, these are people's personal spaces. They're low walls. There's also a social area that people can work together on projects and you can say hello. We don't want doors. We have a very few doors in the place because we want to show what's going on. We have a lot of community engagement, which means a daily tour, or we go out and we meet people. Two things, at least for artisans, which seem to be kind of important. We don't have showers. We want people to go home at the end of the day. We don't want people to live there 24/7. We have to be outside. You just can't live inside your little bubble. The other thing is participation and respect. We don't want people to just leave their stuff there and come once a month or once every 2 months. We want people to be interactive with the place, and we want people to have respect for everybody else and what they're doing. You have to be able to throw people out. If somebody is not being helpful to your community, you have to say, find someplace else. This is not for us. By the way, I just gave you some rules. Feel free to break them. This is not the only way to do things. These are some of the spaces that I've visited over the years. I love going to a new city and going, oh, how do you do things? What cool things are going on? I saw the prototype of the makerspace that's going to be here in Bangkok. I'm really excited. I'm like, wow, there's so much you could do, but it's your space to build, not mine. Two places that are within a few hundred meters of artisans are Parts and Crafts and the Cambridge Hackspace. The Cambridge Hackspace is a little more closed up. The Parts and Crafts is for kids who are from 5 to 15 years old. We generally don't like to have 7-year-olds running around dangerous equipment, so they have a different kind of makerspace, but we live in the same neighborhood. It's really awesome. By the way, this is the mayor of Somerville. We have an economic impact. It's kind of important to tell the people in the government, like, hey, we're just not here alone. We actually generate money for your community. We've had some venture capital backing our member companies, companies that have been in at Artisans Asylum. We've had, as you might have heard, some Kickstarter funding that's been successful, and about 150 small businesses that have come through. So, you know, my consulting company is one of those, but 2- and 3-person companies that have started there and left the nest or downsized and come back. We have so many companies that it's hard to describe what we don't do.
It's obvious which guy's the mayor.
Yes, that's the mayor, yes.
It's the pin.
It's the pin, yes. Going forward, we're not static. We want to keep improving. We want to do workforce development. We want to do more digital fab. We want to get different kinds of people in the door. You know, we have artists now. Maybe we want to have musicians. Maybe we want to have photography people. We have a whole bunch of things we might go forward with. Another thing that I would like to bring up is that we're committed to where we are. When there was a zoning issue that came up, people from Artisans came to the town meeting and said, hey, we believe in this. We're part of this. Many of the people, a good 65% of the people at Artisans are from the local area, and we're bringing people in. We're also doing partnerships, and they'll talk about this next, with a whole bunch of different organizations. Partners are the secret sauce for us, and for a lot of other makerspaces. These are the various organizations that we've been involved with. I'll bring up 2 of them because it's kind of nifty. One is SolidWorks. If you've ever been in if you're a mechanical engineer and you do a lot of design work, SolidWorks is an amazing program, really wonderful. We have 10 full seats of SolidWorks, no restrictions. This is not an educational version, 10 full seats. When they came by for a tour recently, I gave them the tour. They're like, we're going to sign you up again, and we're going to give you the full package. We're going to give you everything. Thermaltronics is a company that makes soldering irons. We had some pretty rinky-dink, low-rent kind of irons. They just gave it to them. They gave them to us because they saw how many people were in the lab. It's an ongoing journey, by the way. We want to do a lot of investment. We want to go forward. We want to expand our community. We're always figuring out who else can we bring in. We just don't want engineers with a lot of money. We want artists. We want people who don't have money. We want to give them scholarships. We want more people to be makers. How do we do this? Obviously, we need money. For example, we're looking at a new building, or at least maybe up or may not, depending on how things go. That's in the $1 million range. There's some other features that we would like to put in. 2 things at the bottom here, which I noticed with some of the pitches and some of the other things we talk about here, is we need money to support education, to outreach, and marketing. We just can't have a space filled with expensive things but not tell anybody about it. So part of our budget is to go forward and say, hey, come on in, let's have a parade, let's do something interesting. Let's see, I think. So that's it for me, and we can ask more questions now. I'm Andrew, our executive director is Lars, and yeah, that's it.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, we have a lot of cool questions, and I'm going to filter some of them, and some of them get some simple answers out, and some others, I'll take that, and some others we might direct to either our panel or to our earlier speakers. So one question that came up right away, if we are a policymaker, what kind of people should we talk to create amazing efficiencies to solve problems? So I'll answer part of that. Don't talk to other policymakers. Okay? But outside of that, I don't know if anyone else works with policymakers if you want to add to that, but don't talk to other policymakers.
I work at MIT.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I always say it's sort of top-down approach from the big to the little. It doesn't really work in innovation. You have to start from the bottom up. So start with the community. Again, with our organization, I could very easily say, I would like us to talk about this. You know, I think AI and blockchain and all of those buzzwords are very important. It doesn't really matter what I say. It comes from all of the volunteers. So, you know, we work together as a community, and I don't think it's really a great idea to have one opinion.
From top down.
Top down.
Great. Actually, we have a question for one of our speakers. Dan, this is a question for you, so hopefully a microphone will walk its way towards you. No, that's a hint to somebody, whoever's holding the microphone. Okay? If there is a certain color that attracts a certain fish, but it also attracts a rare fish, what are you going to do about it? Where's our microphone? We were holding a microphone seconds ago. It went away. Here we go.
I mean, I'd start this with saying, do you really want to know the full technical answer? Because it's a long one. We can discuss it afterwards if you like, but essentially, you can put the lights... Someone's trying to silence me.
It was kind of working.
Is it working now?
Yeah.
Ah, great. It's a very long, very...
Don't use the word technical. Okay. Just shout, please, and we'll figure out the microphone as we go.
It's a very long answer. Do you want to try another question?
You can try. Does that mean you didn't want to answer that one? Excellent, good. That's the only one you've gotten, so you better make your best of it.
Okay. So, it is a very long answer, but it really depends where you're putting the lights on the different fishing gear. So, you can put them in very specific positions that can, as well as the light, attract and repel different fish in different ways. So it's more than just the light.
Okay, great. Thank you. That will sound great. We have another one. This is from the same person who asked about being an entrepreneur in a smaller country with big monopolies. And I thought they were talking about somewhere closer to home, but they were actually talking about the neighboring country, Myanmar. So they've sent another question. They said, how do we strengthen our IP laws? I don't think we know how to answer that question, but I'm going to direct you to two people sitting right here. Please stand up so we can see who you are. These are my favorite IP experts in the world, Dr. Akrawit and Dr. Pieng Pen. Stand up so we can see my favorite IP experts. It's not a very long list, admit, but these two are at the top of it. Okay, so please, anyone who has IP questions, including our friend from Myanmar, these are the guys to talk to, because they work a lot with IP policy in Thailand as well. Okay? The next question is a very interesting question, because I know a lot of us ask questions like this one, and so I'm going to ask you guys to comment. But it's an interesting challenge regarding the agricultural sector, which is important in Thailand, where farmers in developing countries are suffering from poverty, fluctuation of agricultural prices, and uncontrollable factors like the climate. How can we leverage technology maybe to help the plight of farmers? Now, I know you're not necessarily agricultural experts, but what if you were being thrown that problem? How would you start out with it?
Again, we actually have... Uh-oh. We have a company...
What's...
No? So we have a company that we've been working with in our mentor program that is working on... I think they don't want to lose the product from field to truck, and so they're putting sensors on the truck to make sure the weight is the correct weight. And literally, he's going farm to farm to farm. He lives in Boston, but he's going to talk to each of the farmers to actually sort of mobilize them. So again, it starts very small in terms of how he's trying to grow what he's trying to do. So he came from a farm, he found a problem, he goes back to the farm to talk to them every single time. So
I think this is a great example worth building on. I know Katja is helping to try to provide a context which is very, very different, being from New England. But I mean, technology is, when used in a certain way, is a leveler. It allows a lot more people to have information. So certainly that's one opportunity we have with anybody in a developed country that can't reach things today. Let's use that technology to reach and also to bring information back. So somewhere in there's a technical opportunity to cut out middle people, and all the people who hold the prices low for farmers, because ultimately that's one of the challenges. So if we can empower farmers, but the message that Katja said for all the entrepreneurs out there who are interested in this space, you have to go farm to farm and to get started. And I think if you've heard the stories, it's always that kind of start. So be prepared for that challenge. There's another interesting question, and I'm going to refer it to another person in the room if he is not the person who asked the question. Or maybe Christina can help us. There's a warning as well. For the less fortunate people, this is an interesting list, okay? Such as the blind, the disabled, or those who just got out of jail. Okay, I don't know how those three go together. Blind, disabled, or people just got out of jail. How can technology be used to leapfrog these people and bring about a better, leapfrog for these people and bring about better future opportunities? So you've heard from Christine, and we'll give her a microphone if she wants to weigh in. But there's another guy in the room. I don't know if he's in the room. Chachai Thaw, if he's in the room, does a lot of, oh, you're next to my favorite IP people. Okay, excellent. All the good people are on that one row. Okay. So I'd like to get a comment from either of those. How are you guys using technology to help the blind, the disabled, or Thaw, if you know anyone who's just gotten out of jail? That's the three categories. I don't know anyone who's just gotten out of jail, so.
What about, I can talk specifically about the blind users. Perhaps you can support me after that, because both of us in the area of people with sight loss. The main thing is technology for us, people who can see, means the same and even more for people who cannot see. So the main idea is to provide them the same kind of tool and access as we have, to read books, to have the same education. And specifically for blind users, it's even more important because so far they're just listening. Just imagine you're listening all of the stuff you have every day on the same time. Every time when I listen to my favorite book, I just fall asleep. So what would be the quality that we are providing for people with sight loss? So this is crucial, even more important for people that cannot see as for us. So it's really important.
Great.
It's a pity that more than 300 million people cannot have the same access.
Well,
for technology is very important. Like for blind people, one of the most life-changing technologies for them is the iPhone. It changed their life, like totally changed their life. So they can do a lot of things on their smartphone these days. So I work with a lot of people with disabilities and also other groups of minority people as well. So technologies has helped them, like we develop like mobile application for the blind. We make tools or technologies for them. We do graphic design course for the deaf, so that companies can employ them by using graphic design. Because for graphic design, you don't really have to communicate that much, and you don't really care who is doing it as long as the job is good, right? So it depends on the quality of the work that they do. I think the technology does help them a lot.
excellent. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Please, whoever.
That's me. Over here.
Oh, it's just a voice from God, so I have no idea.
So that's a really big question.
I have noticed one thing: the mic only doesn't work for Dan. So just an observation. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a very big question, and I think again, just break it down into one piece, right?
Can you do the people who got out of jail? You might know that group.
Yes, I know that group very well. I just got out of jail. No, I'm just kidding. I would just say ask them, right? So don't ask us. I have no idea. Actually go and talk to those people and find out what they would say to that question. I think one of the things that I see the most in the entrepreneurs that we work with is that they don't talk to enough people. They don't talk to who would be their customer. So they don't actually go out and say, what is it that you need? They're an engineer, they go build something, and then they say, why does nobody want it? It's because they didn't actually ask what people wanted. So before you go build anything, please, I'm begging you, I tell this all the time, go out and talk to those people.
Listen, this leads back to Katja's previous comment, the policy comment about bottom up. And if there's one thing that needs to be fixed in this part of the world, it's more bottom up and less top down. In fact, we're probably going in the wrong direction at the moment. So we need to get more people involved at the bottom up level if we're really going to solve some of these problems. So I think that's an excellent point to emphasize. This next question, I think, is being asked specifically of you two.
Wow.
It says, I don't know if you know where this place is, apart from Silicon Valley, what regions of the world are innovative? Apart from Silicon Valley.
Boston.
Oh, okay.
You know what I think is very interesting is that any place now, especially I would say more on the software side, any place can be innovative, right? Because to build an app, it used to be you needed all these servers and all this stuff. Now you just need an Amazon account, right? So you can be anywhere with some of these things. I think with hardware, it's a little bit harder because you need to, build a physical product. But I actually think, it doesn't really matter in some cases. But, from what I've seen, New York is a very interesting market. They've got great startups there. I've seen great startups here in Thailand in my visit. We have a chapter in Poland. I had absolutely no idea that there was so much going on there. So again, I think what's really exciting to see is that people are taking these models in different geographical areas and fitting them to what works for their region. So they're not all the same. You can't come to MIT or to Cambridge and then bring it back to your region and say it's going to magically work here. You have to find, what works in your region.
Andrew, anyone want to add to it? Especially from the hardware point of view?
Well, from the hardware, my mic's dead too. From a hardware perspective, obviously a makerspace is like the almost zero cost place to start. When I think about all these projects that we've discussed, that's great. But you also, again, to say what Katja said, is you can't just cookie cutter copy. If you wanted to do boat stuff, maybe Somerville, Massachusetts is not the place. Maybe Thailand's the place. You got plenty of space on the water. That's the place to do boat building innovation. There's a lot of cool stuff in boats here. So it's all going to depend on where you are. We're not going to do snow removal innovation in Thailand.
Hawaii, though. We can do Hawaii now. It's snowing in Hawaii, so. It snowed in Hawaii last week. Yeah.
So I would say I kind of talk about the makerspace place for hardware because that is a very great place to start when you have almost nothing, but you want to get your hands dirty.
Great. Another question for you guys, because I thought this was interesting as well. Once you have found an idea, this is a question I think a lot of people worry about on the entrepreneurial side. Once you have found an idea, you thought it was great to develop, and later you found out somebody was already working on it ahead of you. How do you get over that?
I think it's all about execution. So somebody can be doing the same thing as you, but you can do, you might have the drive to do it better, faster, cheaper. So again, I think there are times where you have to decide, hey, I'm never going to make it, right? And that's okay too. I always tell the entrepreneurs we work with, fail faster, right? So figure out whether you cannot overcome those challenges. But I think you'll have a decision point there. But again, I would say that it doesn't really matter. It's about your team and your belief in executing in yourself.
Sometimes it's just you've got to before you start doing a project, a quick search sometimes turns things up. But even in the middle of finding that thing, I'm looking at a few projects myself, and I thought, oh, somebody solved that problem, and I saw an origami folding robot, for example, but I haven't heard anything in years about it, so maybe it's still time for me to get in that space. Just because someone's made a proof of concept, they may have abandoned for different reasons, so don't lose hope just because somebody just built prototype 1.
Great. Question for Edward. What was the inspiration? So is this person from Konkan here again? This question was asked in Konkan on Wednesday. What was the inspiration for the motto, why think big but act small? Isn't it clear by now? Every story that we've heard today and many of the entrepreneurial projects we've heard today are exactly that. They are think big and act small. And the reason is, the reason is very simple. So I have some slides, but I'm not going to go to it because we're down to our last seconds. But, big companies, when they innovate by making a small change that 1 million people can use, right? A big company, when they innovate, has to make a lot of people happy immediately. That's what they're interested in. They've got a lot of customers. So an innovation for a big company has to be fairly small. But for an innovation-driven entrepreneur, just like all the stories we've heard today, if you're going to make a mark on the world, you're going to make a mark by doing something completely different, and it's going to start with one person. And if you can't make it work for that one person, there is no number two, okay? And I know, and in fact, in some ways, I will blame Silicon Valley for this. There's this idea that you can just jump to 1 million customers and scale and all that kind of stuff. But I've been involved with 4 companies myself. I advise several others. I have lots of friends who've done great things. I have never, ever seen a company grow to 1 million customers without having one customer first. So prove me wrong, but I've never seen it happen. And if you're doing something weird, you got to find that first customer, okay? So that's why we say think big. Imagine something big, and then if it's really big and weird enough, you're not going to find a lot of people at the beginning, because most of the people in the world want to have what they see already. So if you're willing to think big and dream big, you're going to have a hard time finding that first person. The other slogan I like to say all the time is find the person who needs you the most. And if you find that person who needs you the most, start with them, and then do number 2, and then do number 3, and then do number 4, and maybe at 6 or 7 you can jump to 10, and maybe you scale a little bit more and you get to 20, and then 50 and 100, but you have to do one first. So that's think big and act small. And I think that's a good place to end, because there's at least 15 people in the room who are not here to listen to us. They want to hear the results of the competition. Okay? So let's move on to that. I'd like to thank our panel. Katja, Andrew, thank you very much.
ขอเสียงปรบมือดังๆให้กับ speakers ของเราด้วยนะครับและนี่ก็คือ special panel discussion ของเรานะครับยอดเยี่ยมมากๆเลยและน่าสนใจมากๆเลยนะครับ